welcome to On the Shelf, where I take some of my books off the shelf and tell you about them. So this was born out of some interest that a few people had into finding out what was on my bookshelves, because obviously when I do things online, there they are in the background. And I thought that's a great idea, because I love talking about books. Books are one of my favourite things in the world. Book time on a morning, reading time, is one of the most important things in my life. Obviously the people in my life are far more important than the books, but only marginally, possibly. No, that's not true. So anyway, here we go with another clutch. 6 books here, 6 books today, and here they are for a quick look. Some of these books, a couple of these books, have been very significant in my thinking and in my kind of ongoing education, and in all of the things that I talk about, or some of the things I talk about, some of these books in relation to the well-being kind of stuff I talk about, and the social work stuff that I talk about. So it cuts across both social work shorts and self-care shorts, my kind of 2 passions. And the first one in the pile of books that I have here is Mullainathan and Shafir's Scarcity, the true cost of not having enough. And there it is for you. And this book influenced my thinking about a lot of things, particularly related to social work, but also in relation to change and transformation in our own lives. And the concept that I take from this, I'm not going to read you a bit of this that I've underlined, I'm going to just tell you about the concept. The concept that I've taken from this, that I use in many places, is they talk about our brain, our mental ability, our mental faculties, our ability to concentrate, stay on task. They talk about all of those things. They talk about a bandwidth. They talk about the fact that we only have available to us a certain mental bandwidth. And there's science that bears out this idea in various ways. When we think about working memory, for example, we think about that idea. We've only got so much working memory. And they talk about it in relation to poverty, which obviously interests me in terms of the social work aspect of what I do. And they say that, as social workers, if you like, we go into situations and try to facilitate change with people when really their bandwidth is being taken up by the fact they have no money. When are they how are they going to pay their rent? How are they going to pay how are they going to put food on the table? How are they going to pay their energy bills at the minute? Very important. Their bandwidth is taken up with so much of that there's very little left for future thinking beyond the here and now. It's Maslow's triangle a bit, isn't it? It's Maslow's triangle of need, really. They're focused on the bottom layers of that triangle, and we then come in as social workers, maybe as health professionals as well, maybe as teachers, maybe all that kind of thing. We come in and they can't focus on what we want them to focus on, our agenda, because they've got a whole other agenda that is taking up their bandwidth. And it's the same for us. For example, let's imagine you're trying to, I don't know, lose weight. This is me, personal example. Lose weight, drink less, exercise more. Okay, if you've got other things, you can probably do some of those things. You can probably do all right at those things. But what we know is, as soon as it's a bad day at the office, as soon as kind of your world becomes problematic in some way, just again a personal example, I'm finding it really difficult at the minute to focus on nutrition, exercise, and all those kind of things, because we're having our kitchen gutted and a new kitchen fitted. First world problem. But that's causing. It's not causing stress. It isn't really, but just our routine has been disrupted. So that's taken up some of the bandwidth, and I've not got the bandwidth left to do the other things. I'm absolutely nailing the exercise, but not nailing the diet because my bandwidth, So anyway, that's Scarcity by Mullainathan and Shafir, and it's a good book, and it kind of, there's more to it than that, but that's certainly the concept that I took from it. The next one is this lovely pink dude. Participation Revolution by Neil Gibb. I'm going to read the bit off the back because this sets the scene better than I could. It can at times feel like everything is falling apart, and there is a reason for this. It really is. You can see there's a theme in what I read, can't you? In the next 10 to 20 years, 7 in 10 current jobs will disappear. Half of today's corporations will no longer exist. We can either see this as an end or a beginning. In this essential guide to the bewildering future, Neil Gibb shows we are at one of those rare points in human history when a whole way of thinking is on the turn, akin to the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. In the New World Order, passive consumers are being replaced by active participants. I really hope so. And in university last week, we were talking about radical social work, and we were talking about being active in trying to facilitate change. Really interesting, and it's a finger that I point at myself often. I can spot the changes that need to take place, but am I really doing anything about them? That's the question I ask myself. So I like that in the New World Order, passive consumers, this locked into this capitalist idea that we just consume and don't think about the consequences, thinking of global warming and all that kind of stuff, are being replaced by active participants, Gibb suggests. And I thought this was interesting. He talks about a Greek idea that doesn't have a simple English translation. I'm going to try and pronounce it. It's spelled Koinonia, koinonia, maybe. And these are groups brought together and organised around a single common purpose. Their affiliations based on a deep sense of belonging and ownership for everyone involved. They are networks organised from the bottom up. They are based on the principles of intimacy, fellowship, shared experience, contribution, and participation. I think that's really important. There's some important things in there about a groundswell, bottom-up start for transformation and transition, which I think is important. It made me think about, when I was reading that, back in the day, many years ago. I'm an atheist now, but I used to go to church, and it made me think that I think actually the move away from faith-based systems by large percentages of the population maybe has left a hole somewhere that we don't have to refill with religion necessarily. But what I think being involved in a religious organisation, in Christianity as it was for me, does give a sense of belonging, does give a sense of ownership for everybody involved. It is a network. Certainly local churches are organised from the bottom up, I find. The church of the people, not the building, all that kind of stuff. And it is an intimate fellowship and shared experience. So I think that got me thinking of that, and I won't see a return to that aspect of my life from the past, to be honest. But are some of the problems we see as a consequence of the fading of old systems of belonging, and we now require new ones maybe. And the new one that most of us have adopted is the capitalist consumerist way of belonging, which isn't a way of belonging, really, is it? But we're conned into thinking it is. The next book, Chavs, the demonisation of the working class. I do find it really difficult to figure out which way to turn these books to get them straight. Have you spotted that? Owen Jones. I've read some other of Owen Jones's books, and I've never really got to the end of them, if I'm being honest. But you might be different. Establishment, I found particularly difficult to read. But this book transformed me, I suppose, from being centre ground politically to being left of centre. I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm a socialist. I wouldn't say I was, wildly left of centre. But certainly this book made me change my thinking around that position. And it's brilliant. I haven't underlined anything in it, so I can't give you a nugget here at all. But I have used this in lectures before, where I've talked about the impact of class, the impact of the chapter on the impact of class, where he compares the media representation and presentation of the situation with Madeleine McCann and the situation with Shannon Matthews, where he talks about how the press treatment of those two families from different classes was very, very different, and that's probably the most interesting chapter in there, but the others are very good as well. Next one, here we go, moving swiftly because you probably haven't got all day just to listen to me whittering on about these kind of things. The Marshmallow Test, classic test, book about that, about things like delayed gratification. So the premise, if I remember rightly, this is one of the first ever books I read in this area, so it was quite a while ago. I think I probably wrote it when it came out in paperback, which was 2014. Actually, not as long ago as I thought. I would have put it further back than that, but good. What's that? 8 years ago. Yeah. Marshmallow Test. So it's a classic example. It's been criticised, but it's just an interesting way to think about how we react. So the premise goes, if I'm remembering it exactly rightly, but read the book, it's really good, is that children are brought into a room and they're offered a marshmallow, I think, but they're told that if they can sit in the room on their own with the marshmallow and not eat the marshmallow, somebody will come back in 10 minutes or whatever, and they'll get 2 marshmallows instead. And loads of the children just eat the marshmallow because they cannot resist the marshmallow. I would eat the marshmallow. I'd be like, hang on, 1 marshmallow now, 2 marshmallows in 10 minutes. I've just had this marshmallow now, really, for the sugary, sweet taste of delight. So yeah, I'd probably do that. Yeah, and so yeah, delayed gratification, putting off till later, And then this one, I've not read this yet. It's on the shelf in the same place. The Cosmic Serpent, DNA and the Origins of Knowledge. What's it say? Despite his initial skepticism, Narby found himself engaged in an increasingly obsessive personal quest. The evidence he collected on subjects as diverse as molecular biology, shamanism, neurology, and ancient mythology led inexorably to the conclusion that the Indians' claim were literally true. To a consciousness prepared with drugs, specific biomedical knowledge can indeed be directly transmitted through DNA itself. He became intrigued by the claim of Peruvian Indians that their phenomenal knowledge of plants and biochemistry was communicated to them directly while under the influence of hallucinogens. See, this is what's good about this. I knew that was on my shelf, so I keep seeing it. I think, I should read that. That's really good. So next, and finally, this book here. This is just lovely. Essays on Life by Thomas Mischel, farmer. I love that. Thomas Mischel, farmer. I love that. That's what it says. Brilliant. And what I love about it is it's a really nice little book. This and it shows the original cover. The original cover on the inner sleeve, which is really nice. And this is just one of those little books. It's only 86 pages long, and it's just chock full of his farmery wisdom. And I've got loads of underlines in here. I've just picked a few. This spirit of usefulness. He talks about this idea, isn't it, that we need meaning, we need a why. This spirit of usefulness, that you're being useful, carried into daily work, lends a dignity to work and imparts to it pleasure. We need to find joy in everything. I was reading that's Mahali's 6th sense, Mahali, isn't it? I think we need to find joy in everything, and that's what Mitchell's saying here. If we take a spirit of usefulness into our daily work, the work then feels dignified and pleasurable to us. I think that's important. Sometimes that dignity is undermined in the workplace, isn't it? Here we go again. Pleasures are an essential of life. Good one, Thomas Mischel. Pleasures are an essential of life. If moderately indulged in, they contribute towards health, cheerfulness and vigour, but when no self-control is exercised in regard to them, and anyone gives full rein to them, they may produce ill health, misery and weakness in body and in mind. Spot on, isn't it? 1913, I think this was written. And finally, for you, the battle of life, in the greater number of cases, must necessarily be fought uphill, and to win it without a struggle is perhaps to win it without honour. For if there were no difficulties, there would be no success. If there were nothing to struggle for, there would be nothing to be achieved. And I think that's really important, because that is not the message modern capitalism, modern consumerism sends us. I think we are routinely told that life can be easy if you buy this product, have this holiday, have this thing, do this, do that, do the other. I suppose, in many ways, that goes back to I'm going to mention another book here, but I'm just reading it now. The Myth of Normal by Gibb, I think that's how you pronounce it. That says, like, the modern world generates illness, mental ill health. He talks about in young people, but everybody is rooted in betrayal and abandonment. This system that we live in, and actually, it's that thing from the participation revolution as well, isn't it? That we've become so attuned to the environment that we're in that we think that capitalism and consumerism is normal, that everything should be easy, and it shouldn't be, and that's what Thomas Mischel says. I'll finish with this from the Gibb book. He talks about an analogy of the swimming fish. I've only just started, I'm only half an hour, I listened to it as an audio book, half an hour into it, and he says normal is a view of life that there's nothing to see here, and all systems are functioning effectively. And he tells this allegorical tale, I suppose. Is that the right word? Two fish are crossing. There are three fish actually. Two fish and an older fish, two young fish and an elder fish, and they're crossing aquatic paths, and the two young fish go past the elder fish, and the elder fish shouts, "Morning, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on, and one says to the other eventually, "What the hell's water?" Because the most important, he says, uses these words, the most important, ubiquitous, everywhere, and obvious realities are often the hardest to see, and the most difficult to talk about. We're back to Plato's cave, aren't we? Again? I'll let you ponder that. What the hell's water? So anyway, there you go. That was on the shelf. Books brought off the shelf for you, and there they are again. And I'll pop a list up for you next. Take care.